Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to The Reactive Entrepreneur, the show where we combine the tech world with the business world and we talk about all our struggles, how we overcame it, and how we use those skills to transform our everyday life. Today, we've got an exciting guest. I'm super excited. My very good friend, and we met. It's a crazy story, but I'm not going to hold it back anymore. Leon, introduce yourself. What's up?
What's happening, bro? Long time no see. It's good to be back.
Yeah.
The last time we did a podcast was like when I was still at Facebook. I was still working for Facebook, man. It was like a year and a half ago.
Exactly, man. It's been ages. God. And today we've got Jay as well, so it's gonna be a nice vibe.
My guy Jay, man. Honestly, the most like prospective millionaire. I just see I see Bill Gates in this guy every time I see him.
Leon is just so kind, man. I love him.
He's full of energy.
He's full of energy and so direct, and he's so kind, man.
Exactly.
I'm stealing your energy and using it myself. Like, I don't think you should actually be too happy about that.
I wanted to get a video episode with you because your energy is honestly like it's unique. I think you're so bubbly and like full of energy, and even that's why when we first met, it was just a straight fire. I mean, but like that's why this is gonna be a perfect session. So Leon, tell us about yourself. What is your background?
Cool. So basically, start from the very beginning. I am in Dubai right now. I work here as the head of drug discovery for a cancer research startup based out of Cambridge, UK. I came to be in Dubai because when I met Sunny, when we came on holiday to Dubai, when we both have our respective sort of burnouts in the UK, and we're like, yo, let's go to the Middle East and sort our problems out there, because it's just much nicer. I came out here. I loved it. My auntie got breast cancer when she was it was around 2022, the start of 2022. So I thought, I'll just move out here. I'll look for a new job. And then I managed to find this really cool role here that I could do from the UK. So I'm working in this cancer research startup. My background, I've got a PhD in Cancer Immunology from the University of Cambridge. I graduated in 2017. After that, I did my postdoc. It was a joint fellowship between MIT and Harvard Medical School in computational neuroscience.
Nice.
Yeah, man. My background is like nerdy as hell, but like when you dig deeper, bro, like it's just... it gets mad. But yeah, so like my background was like, so I did my postdoc in computational neuroscience.
Nice.
After that, I went to McKinsey and Company. So I was there as a consultant in the risk department. And I was working there for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, I kind of like said, okay, I'm done with this. Like, it's just, you can't, like the whole nice thing about consulting is being able to travel like business class and like go and stay in nice hotels. Like when you're forced to do it from your bedroom, like, do like 12 or 13 hour shifts, like making slides.
Yeah.
Like just, the hype dies, man. Like your postman doesn't care that you're a consultant, right? When he comes and visits you, like Tesco delivery driver, I work for McKinsey, shop.
So just before we skip over the first bit, right? You went to, just as let's go through this again, Cambridge, which is like the most prestigious uni in UK. Right? Cambridge and Oxford are like up there. Yeah. And then not just Cambridge, which is already like enough to say, damn. You then went to MIT, and then you said you did a bit of time at Harvard as well.
Both of them simultaneously. So
that's
like,
crazy.
Wow.
And how does somebody go from, how do you do that? Like, how do you go to somewhere like, because it's hard enough to get into MIT.
Yeah.
So how are you getting into Harvard and MIT?
Yeah.
So when I was applying, so I finished my PhD, right? So I finished my PhD in 2 years and 9 months. I was like, I got into it. I got all my results that I needed. I was kind of like done by it by then. And I really like cancer research, but at the same time, I'm sort of like a nomad when it comes to research. Like I really like jumping between different areas. I really like kind of like looking at everything in academia. Like my background was physics before I got into cancer research.
Yeah.
And so like I went into like looking at Harvard and looking at the different sort of stuff that really related to me in computational like research and what I can potentially do.
Yeah.
And then I found this really cool professor who was doing like, basically it's called like anesthesiology, but in reality, it kind of like deals with anything to do with consciousness.
Okay.
Right. And so like consciousness research, like trying to understand the basis of what makes us conscious and what makes us like, stay awake as people. And so I ended up applying to this guy's lab. I was begging him. I was like, yo, please. So the way that I apply for things, right? And this is what I want to tell you guys at home. You have to be persistent and stubborn. Like you have to be so stubborn. Like I would email him every day. Like, every day. I knew his like day schedule. Like, I used to call up his like assistant and be like, hey, is Emery back? And, like she was like, who are you? How do you know his first name?
Yeah.
How do you know what time he's available and free? I'll call up constantly. And eventually they set up a meeting with me, an interview. He was a joint fellowship like holder. Like he had a joint appointment between both Harvard Medical School and MIT because he was both a surgeon. He is actually really interesting. He's the first African American to be simultaneously like the professor of statistics and also a professor of medicine and also a professor of something else, like in 3 different areas.
Damn.
He was so cool. Man.
Wow.
It was honestly so cool working with him. Yeah.
Nice.
So eventually I got an interview with him. I got there, applied, went there. I was like there for like 9 months. And
How did you reply in the end?
It's like, okay, cool, fine. No, just
Stop emailing me.
Khalas, the American version of khalas, like stop, like, please stop.
Nice.
Yeah, so he got back to me, got me like I did my interview with him, and like I have like really bad ADHD.
Yeah.
And like I think it kind of permeates to this interview. Like I have really bad ADHD, but the cool thing about it is that like even though it's really difficult for me to finish a lot of tasks, I have so many ideas like constantly.
Nice.
Like I get things done 30% of the way. That's the reason why I need to have like people behind me, like just pushing. I need a J basically in my life.
Yeah.
But like having ADHD, does it affect your daily life? How does it affect
Dude,
it
hell
all?
yeah, man. It's so hard to like, imagine like you like start writing a piece of code, right? You start writing the function and you don't write the unit tests. Or like you write a function and like you don't write the actual like if def main. Like you don't have the main part of the function. You just like write the helper function. That's my work done today. You're just not bothered anymore. So like you really have to like set up processes in your life to kind of like get things done.
Right. And what would you do to sort of ground yourself or like control those things, like those impulses?
So with ADHD, like when I get like the impulse to just like kind of break away and not do something, like I've been meditating since I was 16, right? So like a long time ago, when I was 16 years old, there was no TikTok, there was nothing. We had the day of old YouTube, right? And like some like there was like an Indian dude that I watched like in India, I don't know what his name was, right? Teaching about meditation, right? And breathing into your navel or whatever and breathing out, I had like 500 views. Like nobody had seen this guy yet, right? Nobody in California had started like what's it called? What's those things that those retreats where they go and drink kombucha and whatever?
Oh yeah.
So I started meditating from then, and it really helped to like get my brain to stop responding as much to those intrusive thoughts that will kind of like get me to deviate away from like working on a problem. Because ADHD, like people don't realize this, but if you have ADHD as a child, it really does impact your ability to like kind of succeed later on in life. Yeah, you're not necessarily more stupid, which is what my teachers thought. They're like, this guy's a dumbass, man. Like,
total opposite.
Dude, there was once an intelligence test that I had to do when I was at school, and like I got like the bottom in the school, like in the class, and like I needed to prove that because I got expelled. But we'll get into that later. But I needed to prove that my intelligence wasn't bad to be able to get the scholarship, and I got really bad. And it wasn't because I was less intelligent, but it was because I just wasn't able to focus for a long enough period of time to get my working memory to process some of those like kind of logical puzzles that prove they were a smart person.
Yeah. This is the thing I find that's flawed in the education system, right? I think because we had a very crazy similar story. You did pretty well at the gate when in like high school years, right? Yeah. So I think me and you had similar story where we started doing well and then it kind of just went like down. Like A level was just, I was A star GCSE student and then A level just crashed, right? And then I think, did you ever, you said that's when you got expelled, right? As in around high school.
Yeah, so I went to high school. So basically the story was, right, my mom and my dad got divorced when I was like 10 years old, right? And like, again, like, a divorce is a really hard thing for a guy to process.
Definitely.
Like, you need a masculine figure in your life to be able to put some of those guardrails up. But my mother did an incredible job of trying to like kind of obviously go and work. She was doing a part-time degree, like a kind of studying at the same time. It was very hard for her to control like this ADHD kid. Yeah. That was like, I was obese as hell, man. I was 120 kilos, right? At like 5 foot. Like it's
That's crazy,
like Eric Cartman style obese, bro. Like my mom was not like Eric Cartman's mom, bro. My mom was strict as hell, man. My mom made sure that like, you know, I finished my homework, whatever, but inevitably, I got into a lot of fights when I was in school. I used to be a menace, bro. Like, my teacher would be on the computer, like, trying to set up homework. I would just turn off his machine. Yeah. Right? That was the kind of thing that I used to do, like, dropping stink bombs, like, laying off fire alarms, everything like that. Being a general menace to society. And then the school was like, we're just done with you, man. Get out of here. Like, so they kicked me out. And, like, when I was expelled, like, again, during that period at school, I just really didn't like it. Like, imagine I was in, like, you know, doing design and technology, and then someone would just come up to me, like, we'll start a fight or something, right? And then it'd come, like, I remember one time, we started a fight. We went out to the corridor to kind of like settle the fight. And then I got stabbed in the head with a compass, right? Like bleeding out. My mom taking me to hospital, right? Alhamdulillah, I didn't kind of like penetrate the bone or anything, right? Maybe left it then, I don't know. But like there was events like that happened a lot in succession that kind of just led to them saying, "Khalas, we're done with you, bro." Like, get out. So when I got expelled, my dad was like, "Yo, you got two options, bro. Like either you go to Lebanon and you get a job with your uncle, like fixing cars, or I'm done with you, or I'll pay for like one term and then you try and get like scholarships later on for this like private college because no one will take you after you've been expelled. Like it's very difficult. No one wants this like this crap guy like this menace to come along like and just like ruin their entire place. So I got a scholarship afterwards. Like I realized that I love maths. Like I realized that maths is like it's a game. And like, for people that are ADHD sort of like based that like love dopamine, like, we're addicted to dopamine like quite crazily. Having something like mathematics where you get dopamine rewards constantly like for solving problems, like especially those parts of problems where you have like intermediate parts, right? Like solve this integral, right? And there's like 10 different parts to it, and then you just do it one by one, and your brain's like rewarding you every second. Like again, no TikTok, no instant gratification, right? You have to get it right. Like you have to get it right now. there's a right answer, there's a wrong answer. If you get it wrong, you're gone. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
So I started doing really well in mathematics. I started really liking physics, and I was able to get scholarships all the way through until I went to university.
Right. Okay. So you bridged that gap through a scholarship that got you into a private college,
Yeah.
which then got you a stepping stone up to
Exactly.
right, and then getting to Cambridge after that.
Yeah.
What was the gap like there? Like, because obviously people nowadays are like, I need to play the piano, I need to fly a plane, all of the things out just to get into a college. So how do you do that?
So so basically when I was in my last year of university, so I went to Warwick for my undergraduate. I did mathematics and physics. And then for my final year project, I ended up getting 96% or something, right? Like crazy.
Okay.
And the person that I was doing the project with, like, he was a really nice guy. He was a really, really nice guy. He sent me this problem that was basically computational. That's why I started to love programming on computers. Like, I started writing my first like stuff in like C++ and C. Like, there was no nice Python scripts and stuff now, right?
Yeah.
We had to do like memory, like kind of like management and all this other stuff, like kind of garbage collection, like dealing with bus errors and segmentation faults. Now Python is like import pandas as PT.
The low level coding back in the day. Yeah.
I did something. Exactly. Yeah. So like I did some really cool stuff with him around like kind of it was what's called condensed matter physics. And so like he recognized that this person was doing quite well, and I also told him like, look, I'm applying for like a means-based scholarship as well to kind of go and study somewhere. Right. Because again, I was like too broke. Like, there's no way at masters I would be able to pay for it. Yeah. But then he wrote like a personal recommendation to somebody at Cambridge in the Cavendish lab, which is like where the Cavendish lab was where the majority of things got discovered. Like, it's like the electron got discovered there by J.J. Thomson. Like, there's like the Rutherford model of the atom. A whole bunch of stuff went there. I went to that. Like, the Cavendish lab is like mecca of physicists, bro. Like, it's just incredible. Yeah. I got there eventually. Like, I went and did an interview with them. Again, it was my ideas that got me there. It wasn't necessarily the fact that I was like getting the highest grades in the class. It was the fact that I had so many different ideas. Like, I could integrate things together from like a whole variety of places. Right. Like, I think at one point I started imagining like the material that was used like in Halo, that plasma pistol stuff. Right, that comes out of it. I was like, bro, like, what if we could like use that somehow into a semiconductor and then use it to conduct I was talking to this guy about a Halo in Cambridge. I was trying to describe to him what the plasma rifle could do. Nice. And like, he was like, yeah, cool, man, come along. So I got in there. From there, I discovered machine learning from one of my friends. And back then, bro, no one cared about machine learning.
Yeah, it's early days.
Early.
Dude, no girl was gonna be like, oh my God, you do machine learning? You're so cool. It was like them way to do like program a friend. Like, you loser.
And I think while we're at this point, biggest question we get mostly is maths important as a coder? So you're like the ideal person here to answer this. Is it important?
100% it's important.
Okay, but for what field?
I think for the fields of like machine learning, I mean, look, for programming and software development and algorithm design, like, you need to know logic quite well. You need to be able to understand how things like flow in a logical procession. You need to be a rational person to be able to understand, like, for example, why like quicksort, for example, is like kind of logarithmic in terms of like how it scales. To understand that stuff, you do have to be like somewhat rational. And a logical person. But then when it comes down to machine learning as well, right? Like, to be able to design those algorithms, to understand exactly why they operate the way that they do, to be able to design the next generation of better algorithms, you need to have an intrinsic, at least, appreciation or respect for the mathematics that underlies it as well. Otherwise, what you're doing is like, you're just copying and pasting like boilerplate code from Stack Overflow. And like, a lot of times, you can get away with that, right? Like, you can get away with Stack Overflow, Control C, Control V.
Well, now it's ChatGPT, but yeah.
But imagine ChatGPT will take. That's the thing. Like, ChatGPT has the potential to take over a lot of these jobs. It can already write a lot of programs for people, right? You can ask it to write something, it can write it for you. But what it can't do so far, what we've seen, is generalized artificial intelligence, aka infer causality. So as long as we're able to infer causality via logical processions and rational chains, right, we're able to kind of like determine what the causal events are better than the machine. We're still one step ahead of a machine. But as machines start to catch up with us, you notice that a lot of these jobs might start to become redundant. And so therefore, like, you do have to be one step ahead of the curve every single time.
Right. Yeah. Because we found when we were at university, because me and Jay studied together at uni, we found it was only really the machine learning aspect where the mathematics came in, like big time. Everything else, like you said, is logical breakdown, rational thinking, that kind of thing. But I think it's a big question because a lot of people won't enter the field of software development just purely because they're not good at maths. So what would you say to that?
No, man, you guys got to get in. Like, honestly, like, I think every single person should learn software engineering. Like, it's honestly like, there is no barrier to entry. We're not trying to gatekeep it either. Like, people, I think, gatekeep themselves out of it these days. Right? Like, it's just so many tutorials out there. You have like amazing tech influencers like Sunny, for example, giving incredible courses, right? Like, I think that you definitely have to
plug in, shameless plug.
Like, where's the checklist?
Nice.
Yeah, so like, you do have to, I think learning it is a very important kind of like part of any modern toolkit. It's the same thing as being able to, like, I don't know, like, write. It's like learning to write and learning to read as well, right? Learning how to like kind of interface and communicate with something which could potentially end up walking among us like robots, right? It's very important, and so
Yeah.
you should learn it. Like, it's at the end of the day, software engineering is a tool to be able to solve other things. It isn't a means to itself. It's not the end of itself.
Nice.
You don't learn software engineering just to learn software engineering. You always apply it.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I even say even if a kid isn't going into becoming a coder or a web developer, a machine learning analyst, whatever it is, they should learn coding.
Yeah.
But logical skills just it changes the way you think of everything.
100%.
You start looking at everything like this can be broken down into ABC, and you start like breaking everything down in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like it's an amazing feeling.
It's also fun.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
so much fun.
Yeah, I think people get scared by the entrance, and that's why I think it's amazing to have these calls, because someone like you, massively overqualified for a talk like this.
Nah,
even.
bro.
But genuinely, like the guy's got like the 3 top universities under his belt, and then I think it's awesome for you to say that and break that barrier for a lot of people, because now they'll be like, oh, actually, I can join.
I can, yeah.
I mean, what I like these days is that people are getting really into stuff like Roblox and Minecraft, right? All of these places where you can kind of like go and explore and create things, right? People
Nice.
love to create
Yeah.
and build things.
Yeah.
Software engineering is the grown-up version of that, right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm not saying that we can still play Minecraft. Like, I play Minecraft sometimes as well. I'm not gatekeeping.
It's
Generalizing.
it's quite a good analogy.
It's
though.
fun
Yeah.
as hell,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
It's so fun. But Minecraft is like essentially our own, like our child's mind's way of expressing creativity. The same with like Lego, for example, right? It's able to do that. But software engineering is also like this really cool way of being limitlessly like enabled. Like you're able to build things like as far as your imagination and creativity can like kind of push you.
Yeah.
And you can get paid a lot of money to do it. So like just you might as well imagine being able to like build Legos for money, right? Like software engineering is the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. So you got the degrees.
Yeah.
You went down the PhD route.
Yeah.
Firstly, what made you go down the PhD route?
So I was looking at machine learning. One of my friends told me about machine learning. It was like, it's basically like maths, but at the same time you're building AI, but at the same time it's maths. And then I was looking at what he was doing, and he was like talking to me about stuff like Dirichlet processes and Gaussian processes and like all of these different words. And I had no idea what was going on, right? And I was still like very much on the, like finding it hard to control my ADHD sometimes. And so like reading these crazy papers full of math jargon and like stuff I just don't understand. Like I had to develop ways of being able to kind of like mentally picture things and build it together.
Right.
So I went for a couple of these interviews. It was really funny. Like I wanted to kind of go and work with this guy called Zubin Kahramani, who was the professor of machine learning at Cambridge.
Okay.
Like he's a top name. Like he's one of the earliest guys like there. Like there's a guy called Michael Jordan, right? It's not the basketball player.
Yeah.
I honestly thought it was him. Yeah. He's one of these
Some guy in the lab. Just like,
so there's the other version. On his webpage, it's like, guys, unfortunately, you haven't landed on like the webpage of Michael Jordan, the basketball player. And just the machine learning researcher.
Yeah.
But he's honestly such a cool guy. Like he's like one of the founding fathers alongside like Jeffrey Hinton and like all of these other dudes like Yann LeCun, like when it comes to like machine learning, but especially probabilistic machine learning. And the way that I got kind of like, I managed to set up an interview with him was like, I knew that he was Iranian, like from his name. And so I just called up his office, again, just the same way as I did with other ones. I was just calling him up. I was like, Chetori Zubin, I didn't speak any Iranian except for those 2 words. Yeah. It was like, who are you?
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I just want to speak to you about potential interview with like PhD for your lab.
And they actually brought your work.
I had an interview with him, man.
Nice.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's thinking outside the box.
Yeah, he's always going unconventional ways.
Yeah.
Dude, that's how he got into MIT and everything.
Yeah.
Which is good. Like,
You have to learn to
really
market.
good.
That's what, guys, you have to learn how to market yourself. Like a lot of us think to ourselves, like software engineering is an introverted field where you have to stay inside your little bubble. Like, no, like a lot of people, like unfortunately, you find a lot of people will stay in their niche or their bubble, like in Google, for example, like 10 or 15 years, thinking they found a family, and then out of nowhere, their laptop gets shut off from the network, right? And they've lost their job, and their family is no longer responding to calls.
Exactly.
Like, it's so sad. Like, go out there. Honestly, learn how to market yourself, learn how to build yourself a profile, learn how to kind of communicate with anyone.
Yeah.
As long as you have good intentions, the world will show you that same energy back. If you go into something, right, trying to like sell someone something, right, like, get apprehensive. But if you go into something with good intentions, genuinely, like, you find that doors, like, there's no harm in knocking on a door.
Yeah.
If it opens, awesome.
Yeah.
But Leon, how did you get in touch with him? Was it through LinkedIn or was
No,
it
dude, I called his office, man.
Oh, straight up.
Yeah,
See,
yeah.
I found his number.
That's gold, because we get this question all the time, innit?
Like,
People ask us, how do I get a job?
I'm not encouraging you guys to go and call Zubin's number.
But if anything, it's a good approach. Like it's different, right? How many people are going to stack up CVs on a paper?
Yeah.
How many of them are actually going to call up the office and say, "Oh, let me try something a little bit different."
Yeah.
Exactly.
And if I get shot down, so what?
Dude, like I have this so whenever someone emails me about an internship or something, right, or like an opportunity, they want to learn something, I always wait until like email twice or something, right?
Yeah.
Just kind of because they get a lot of these emails. So I want to see who's really, really, really sort of like dedicated, who wants it really badly enough. And one time I just got an email saying, "Hello." Hashtag first name. Insert surname. This guy's like PHP script like failed. He was like mass emailing everyone on LinkedIn, right? Saying, "I really love your insert title. Can I get an internship at your hashtag company?" I was like, I mean, like I emailed them back for like props. I was like, "You might want to fix your PHP script, bro." It's embarrassing.
That's hilarious.
But my grandma got breast cancer, so like that's the next stage of it. And then
Right.
I saw like the incredible work that was being done by some of these professors that kind of like came up with, you know, the surgical techniques that they were using to be as minimally invasive as possible. So invasive, then this means like kind of like the amount of like damage or whatever that they use to kind of get in there, remove the tumor and come out.
Yeah.
I saw like the amount of amazing kind of like the professional skills of the consultants that were kind of like giving her the drugs and prescribing her and looking after her treatment and kind of like designing everything. And like I was thinking to myself like, yo, bro, 100 years ago, people used to just drop dead for no reason. Yeah, we had no idea what cancer was. Imagine they just used to drop dead. Be like, oh, they just died because it was their time to die, right? We had no idea that there was this thing inside them growing called a cancer.
Yeah.
And then I saw the amount of suffering that this horrible disease causes, man. And I was like, you know what? Like, what more can I do in terms of life? Like, in terms of like trying to do something righteous, right? Like, I can do machine learning, which I love already because I've learned so much about it. But also, I can direct it in the right way. And that's where the kind of the foundation of my entire life went into.
Nice.
I can use machine learning to try and fight cancer.
Nice.
And I was like, yo, how the hell does this work, man? How do I use these lines of code? How do lines of code make drugs?
Yeah,
Right? How do
yeah.
lines of code like help someone in the hospital who's like suffering?
Yeah.
And it just emerged out of nowhere. This entire field took off out of like, it literally like someone added gasoline to a fire. Like it
Yeah.
just became crazy. Machine learning. And everyone started going crazy about it.
Crazy. Because I remember when I met you, that was one of the most noble things I quickly like caught on because my sister had breast cancer. And then when obviously it went like, luckily touch wood, it went in the right direction. It was in remission.
Yeah.
And now that when you told me your story, because we were on a plane when we were literally finding out all of this stuff when we first met. And I was like, wow. I was like, that's damn cool, man. I was like, that's really cool. Because the next question that kind of naturally is gonna come up is like, you've got amazing skills that are worth a lot of value. They're high value skills, and you've got a lot of different ones, right? You're obviously going to get offered for this job, that job, this job in a commercial sense. What makes you basically say like, you know, okay, I'm going to take maybe a cut from the pay side, but I want to stay on this route. And obviously there are personal reasons, but what was it for you specifically? Because a lot of people might be in the same situation.
I feel like it's easier to be purpose driven in life than it is to try and find constant sources of motivation. A lot of us end up going and watching these motivational videos or look to people like Andrew Tate to be able to kind of give us the days of Andrew Tate. I have no opinions about him, but like saying like a lot of people look to these kind of like these people that are sort of like meant to be these inspirational characters, these motivational characters, right? To kind of like find means to exist or a raison d'etre, or like try to look for a reason to kind of like get out of bed every single day. And some people find money and some people want to find fame, but these things are like they're not consistent. Like you can get money, but you end up chasing more money. You can get fame, you end up chasing more fame. You can get that car and you want a better car, and you just look around you constantly. So a motivation for the sake of motivation is in itself like it's what's that thing called? I can't remember what it's a but it keeps going down. I can't remember what the word is. It's,
I think like the whole thing what he's
Diminishing
talking
returns.
about is like a lifestyle creep sort of thing situation. Basically, it means that when you earn some money, you're happy with the luxuries you get with that money, and then when you get more, those luxuries become necessities, and then you get new luxuries, and then it keeps going up and up, and you just.
I think you
with the
get a
lifestyle.
first-hand glance at that in Dubai as well.
Yeah,
True.
Yeah,
because
like-
you have so many luxuries, and those you just take it for granted, and they become your everyday thing.
It's so true. It's when your entire life or your motivation for life. Do you want some more water? When the motivation that drives your life is linked to something materialistic, and materialistic things are fungible items, right? These things can be destroyed, right? They're not immutable.
They're not
Yeah.
permanent,
Exactly. They can be destroyed at any moment. They can be taken away from you. Anything can happen. And then you base your entire personality, your identity based on a couple of things. If you've associated with your title being taken away from you. If you've associated with like, you know, your relationships, some one of these people can die. Like these things are all immutable. But your sense of purpose, your purpose in life, right? That's the most difficult thing to destroy.
Yeah.
And so if your sense of purpose is tied to something which you believe to be something which benefits all of the virtues that you embody yourself or you model yourself by, then you'll always find recourse to work hard, right? You don't need to sit down and watch a motivational video in the morning, right? As long as you remember what you're doing and what you're doing it for, like that's being purpose driven as much as possible. And that's what I found ultimately gave me the most satisfaction in life and led me to continue. Because money, like I kept on saving money, but I wasn't getting happier. Right? Like it wasn't doing anything for me. Like, you know, I was like driving cooler cars. It wasn't making me happier. I didn't care. Right, I didn't care. I was having an argument with my manager at work, right? And I'll be like, okay, I'm less motivated now to write more code. But what do I do now? Okay, I have to do it anyway, otherwise I lose my car and my money. But it's like, how is that a life? How long can I continue this for, right? It's nothing.
Exactly.
It's horrible.
we spoke about this, having a purpose in life on the last podcast. You said have a golden purpose in life, because then at least that's what you can strive for.
If you don't have, and if you think about it, every successful person that you've spoken to or anyone who's doing well, if you really look deep between the cracks, they've got some purpose behind them, whether it's family, whether it's some reason for, them pushing so hard, whatever it is, there's something driven besides just money. Like even if it looks like it's just money, really dig deep and you'll find some reason why they're working the way they're working, or some trauma or something. They're just, they're covering something or doing something to heal from it. But like, it's a huge driving factor besides, like you said, motivational videos. That stuff dies. Like straight away, that will it'll get hyped for a week, and then after that, you get caught in some debugging situation. You're done. Like you ain't gonna sit there watching Andrew Tate videos and get excited. Like
even at this age, like of the reels and stuff, like you see 5 seconds, you on the next video, man. You just forget about reels. Like,
I'm not motivated yet. Let me watch more motivational videos. Eventually I'll become motivated. Man, I met Stephen Hawking, right? And like when I was doing my
this is big,
dude, I met Stephen Hawking when I was doing my PhD, and I was like, this guy doesn't watch motivational videos. He just sit down like, okay, I'm gonna write all my stuff about like evaporating black holes, right? Let me finish this Andrew Tate video first. Like,
the thing is, I don't actually have anything against Andrew Tate. I think he's actually he's doing pretty good things. I think he just knows how to be controversial in the right way. Like he knows how to push the media, right? Like he knows what he's doing. That's Jay's like
big opinions.
I don't know. I personally think depends. It can be a controversial topic. Jay's like, shut up.
I can see the comment sections below it.
Insert generic motivational person here, right? Like there's been Andrew Tate's throughout history, right? Like he hasn't just been with the advent of YouTube, but you can find. I mean, people like Stephen Hawking, I knew from like personally were driven by purpose, right? They weren't driven by like a sense of wanting to publish another paper, for example. They knew they got up. He fought against massive adversarial kind of like a strife in his life, like kind of given his condition and given what like the doctors said that he could do and couldn't do. He did a lot of stuff that he wanted to do, and he like changed the face of physics forever. Like people like him are just incredible, and like I look up to people like him. And for me personally, I just think that what gave him the satisfaction of life? Like what made him successful? It was because he wasn't thinking about success. He didn't care. Right. He just wanted to. He was enjoying his purpose in life. Right. And
he didn't even let him stop having a wife. He had a fully happy life. Like it's incredible. He used
to go to cinema, man. Like he was chilling. Honestly, bro. Like randomly, we're sitting down like ordering popcorn, right? And you just see like Stephen Hawking pass by. Like, yo, what's up, Steve? Like, he used to love the movies.
That's awesome, man. Yeah.
Really chill.
But Leon, what was your favorite subject in school, man? Because I feel you're more maths, physics sort of guy.
Physics.
I
love physics. It was honestly like it was like magic taking place. That's like Harry Potter stuff. Like the electron goes through two slits at the same time. How? Like it's just crazy stuff, right? Like diffraction patterns or whatever. Like I find it very interesting. I didn't like because I'm a very visual person as well. I really don't like the really theoretical stuff where it's like just pages of lines of maths, right, to get to a derivation. I despise that. I find it really boring. Like I'm not gonna sit down, but I love doing that. No one likes that.
I think you love doing calculus now.
I have to. Like, I really have to. I really have to, right? Like, imagine we're sitting down, like, you have to design a brand new model to be able to detect whether or not this, like, drug will work against this cancer type. Like, you have to, like, kind of think a little bit outside the box. Because every single method has been tried already, otherwise cancer will be cured. Right? You have to think as much as you possibly can outside the box. Like, you have to think about your risk to reward ratio. How much risk am I willing to take? How much am I willing to kind of, like, 20% of my time will be spent, like, kind of exploring brand new things, like, in a day. But 80% of it will be like, okay, I'm going to go back to the tried and tested stuff because, like, it's just the same thing as investing as well, right? You don't put all of your money into like NFTs and Dogecoin, right? You have some in gold as well. We're Asians at the end of the day.
We just bought gold bars.
We just bought.
Our family taught us well.
So what does a day-to-day situation look like from a machine learning perspective? Like because from a software developer, like in a web development, app development sense, it's kind of clear. But machine learning can be, it can vary, right? So what's your day-to-day look like?
And what's like the end goal? Because I feel like yours is just like, it's like creeping.
Is it goal-driven? Like, because obviously if the main goal is to find a cure for cancer, right? But how do you determine like your day-to-day targets? Like, because obviously curing cancer is the end goal. So how are you determining like markers for improvement, that kind of thing?
So I'm not going to give you like some kind of fake morning routine. Like, I wake up in the morning, I do like 100 crunches. I usually wake up like around 6 a.m. because it kind of gives me like my team wakes up 3 hours after me. Like they start working at like because it's GST time, right? They wake up at GMT time. So I wake up at 6 a.m. and the first thing I start to do is like I just look at like as many research papers as I possibly can. Right. Like the more I read, the more my brain's able to kind of like explore the lateral kind of connections between different papers that I read over time. Okay. Like Ali Abdaal sort of like how to get the most out of anything you read. Like I do that as well. Like I'm not gonna lie, I love his videos. Like I love my entire
It's good.
He's so cool. Honestly, like I honestly love his stuff. I love his old stuff a lot.
Yeah.
Like his new stuff about like how to be productive and like kind of, I don't really gel with it that much. I understand the market as full, but for me, like the second brain stuff and making a summarization and like asking questions about everything you've done. Like I've got all of my papers that I've ever read, like kind of like stacked into Notion.
Yeah.
And then like I'll just kind of go and read another paper and be like, yo, I've read a paper like this before, or like this relates to something else. Like go to the other paper into Notion where I've kind of like summarized everything into like a second brain format. And then I'll find a possible link between those two papers.
Okay.
And then I'll find a way to either enhance my kind of like understanding of that first paper using this paper.
Yeah.
Or this paper might lead to a new idea or something that I might want to test for the day.
Right.
So for example, like I might want to use like, there was a model that I built. I'm using something called using BERT. So basically this is like a language transformer.
Okay.
So you use it to basically create an embedding of natural language, right? So it's like ChatGPT, like it's kind of like large language models.
Yeah.
You take like a string or a sentence and then you basically transform that into something the machine can understand.
Right.
Like, you know, like Johnny went to the shop here, doesn't mean anything to a machine. Yeah. But like if you encode it into a 768 embedding, which is like a vector, 768 long.
Yeah.
And then like, that's kind of like, it represents what this particular piece of information you gave it might look like an embedding space by comparing it to everything else in embedding space. Like, like Johnny went to the shop and Johnny went to the supermarket, live close to each other in embedding space.
Okay.
Right. So can we do the same thing for DNA? Or can we do the same thing for cells? Can we do the same thing for diseases? Is there an embedding that we can come up with for diseases or representations of diseases, given biological data that we can collect that can make it much more easy to be able to compare them to one another? Can we do it for molecules? So that's the kind of work I've been doing so far. And like, it hasn't been done that much before, like creating embeddings around like a lot of these different biological structures, because usually biological structures are modeled kind of like using, you know, physical principles like energy minimization, like Gibbs free energy, for example, for getting like, that's how we model whether or not a drug actually interacts with a particular protein. Like we minimize the kind of free energy of the system and see like, okay, what does the binding energy look like? But you also can do a comparison by learning, like if you represent the drugs as a string and the protein as a string, and then you embed them in this way, and then you can compare them in embedding space, you can find out very computationally efficiently, right? Just on the S3 or something, whether or not they are compatible. You save a lot of time from the outset, and you provide an invaluable tool to people who might not necessarily have the computational power that you have as well. So like people can do research all around the world, without having to kind of like pay like for a lot of S3 or like, you know, expensive computers.
So let's imagine you're working on that, right? So that exact problem that you just mentioned. So if you get stuck, or you kind of, when I say stuck, I mean you want to explore or you want to kind of ask a question. It's not as simple as going to Stack Overflow and saying, hey, this is what I'm working on. Stuck. Because you also have confidential stuff, right? You have things which you can't essentially share. Because I know for a fact in the medical industry, if you're onto something, it's going to be worth a hell of a lot, right? So you can't be sharing that on the internet like left, right, and center. So what is your take? Do you have like mentors that you can ask or look up to, or, you know, have a little bit of debate about? How do you approach that situation?
I ask God. I'm just I do.
You do. You wake up in the morning like, yes.
I'm going to Umrah tomorrow. I'm going to go pray tomorrow. So inshallah, tomorrow I'm going to Mecca. Yeah, like a lot of this, like especially like all my colleagues on this, like agree with this. A lot of this is luck. Like, a lot of this is luck based. A lot of the major discoveries that we have right now weren't based around people sitting down and doing calculations and coming up with like the perfect strategy to run something. A lot of it, for example, like you know those bendable screens, right? You know those like kind of OLED screens, right? Like,
this was an accident.
It was an accident, yeah. There was, so the guy, like the professor was in my lab at Cavendish lab, right? Yeah. And it wasn't even him, like, and he was like upset he didn't get the Nobel Prize, right? It was his PhD student. She came in one day, right? And she put the semiconductor in the wrong way around by accident, right? Yeah. And it gave out light. So it was a polymer semiconductor. She plugged it in the wrong way, and then it started giving out light instead of conducting. He was like, "Oh my god, move out the way, you!"
I heard even penicillin drug was discovered by mistake.
Yeah. Exactly.
In the wall.
He left some hovis outside, and then basically, some yeast, right? And he was like, "Oh my god, what is this thing that's like kind of like this bacterium?" That's so, dude. It's like a lot of this stuff is by accident, so you do need a lot of hope. But the way that, if 90% of it is hope, I have control over 10% of it. So I have to be like really like kind of impeccable about strategy. In McKinsey, like we do a lot of stuff around project management, right? To minimize the probability of failure, or kind of like really make sure that we manage the project properly. Right. And I managed to extrapolate the McKinsey process, right? And trying to kind of like amalgamate it as much as I possibly can with cancer research and everything that I do. So issue tree, like I don't know if you guys know what that is, but like kind of top down thinking. Okay. What am I doing today? What's the problem statement? Right. So you ask yourself, okay, how do I want to integrate together like this piece of biological data with this particular model for machine learning? Right. Okay, what are the impediments to this? Okay, the model might be too big. Okay, if the model's too big, how do I get it to become smaller? If I can't get it to become smaller, can I host it somewhere? If I can't host it somewhere, are there other models? You keep asking these questions. It's sort of like the Socratic method. And so you end up like with a set of hypotheses that you can address. Right. If you've gotten to the end of that and like some of these hypotheses can't necessarily necessarily be addressed unless you go and speak to someone.
Right.
Then you think to yourself, okay, can I actually speak to someone without revealing the details of what I'm doing? If I can't, I have to abandon this.
Okay.
Right. That's what I have to
Is
do.
this a team effort or is it just you?
Right now, it's mostly me. Like, it's a very small startup, but like we have some really cool drugs that we discovered like in the past 5 months, and they're being tested right now. Like, it's like all of the drugs. It's so crazy, bro. Like, went from a couple of lines of code in Python, right? And like, there's a drug like being injected into cell lines right now. It's so cool.
That's
But
crazy.
Leon, how different is your job from a biotech thing, or is it biotech? Like, what's the difference?
The thing is, I don't like the jargonic terms like that much. I think biotech, and then they go like, there's biotech and there's tech bio, and like there's too much. There's a lot of hype words being created by people. That, you know, like just these people that are like on LinkedIn, right, with like 100K followers. Like, you guys don't,
I want a DevOps web developer, machine learning expert.
Bio GPT, chat, Instagram, like cloud, like there's always like people that just like have like they studied like, you know, something really non-tech related.
So crazy.
Do you use AI to help?
I use ChatGPT a lot.
Okay.
A lot. I mean, the thing is, like, back in the day, like, they had, like, these polyglots that might be able to kind of, like, do mathematics, like, they can do, like, biology, like, they can do a lot of different things at the same time, like Avicenna or, like, Al-Khwarizmi, all these, like, really cool, like, scholars.
Yeah.
Nowadays, things have become so specialized that you can't look at every single paper that was ever written, right? Like, it's just impossible. There's too much information out there.
Yeah.
ChatGPT has condensed all of that down, right? But you do have to verify a lot of it, right? Like, you can ask it questions, but then like you can't just follow blindly. You have to go and actually look up the sources. That's what I think a lot of people don't do. They just take all of that context, all that information, and they just go run with it, right? And then like you end up, maybe there's something, maybe you just didn't understand what ChatGPT was telling you. You got the wrong context, right? Like, then you end up like giving maybe bad information to people. Maybe you run with the wrong hypothesis. But if it wasn't for ChatGPT, I don't think I would have ramped up as quickly as I could have like into these particular areas. It's fundamentally incredible. Like, it's what you could do with it.
So you're using it as assistance rather than kind of trusting it, because it can confidently hallucinate as well, right?
Yeah.
Where it literally will confidently tell you, this is exactly what you're basically looking for. And then you would believe it if you're not checking other things. You know? So you have to always, especially in your field, you have to be triple checking that.
Dude, some guy tricked it into being racist as well. Like,
I saw, there's like some kid you've forced into like pretend you're being bullied, and you have to go against the ethics of ChatGPT, and then they have version 1, version 2, version 3.
It's like the
crazy.
Dan
That's
version.
the one, Dan.
It's the Dan thing.
Crazy.
you can see Skynet just emerging. Like, you can just see like, it's getting crazy, man.
But like, Leon, in your field, you said it's like more trial and error sort of thing. Do you think in the future AI can brute force that, and or would it help?
Imagine where, like, but the thing is as well, we have to understand that like our brains were made over the course of like hundreds of millions of years of evolution.
And our best part is our brains can adapt, which ChatGPT can't.
Exactly. Like,
we can't adapt unless we make it do.
Like, we're not just like, we're not software, right? We're literally like wetware, like hardware. Like, our brains constantly change and shape due to neuroplasticity. You're constantly forming new memories. Like, the person that you are, and like the person you are like 5 seconds from now is no longer the same person as you were like 5 seconds ago, because you formed this new memory, what I just said. Like a conscious kind of like thought and effort happened to be able to form that, to get that to happen. It's literally not the same thing as what machines are doing. Like, it's completely different mechanisms of learning.
Right.
So I think that machines are inherently building up a very different level or different kind of intelligence to the ones that we have in terms of biology. We just don't know how to describe what they have or whether or not it's better.
Yeah.
But right now, all we can do is we can use it to be able to solve some of humanity's biggest problems, right? And like stuff that's eluded us for years, like how do we cure this horrible disease? And so if we can speed that up by using artificial intelligence, then 100% we should do it.
Yeah. Breaking things down more into artificial intelligence, it can mean a lot of things. Because when I was at uni, I did, part of my disco was like a genetic algorithm, which in the time seemed like it was AI, which is kind of, because it's an evolution. Part 1 is basically
learning
dumb.
model,
Then 2, 3 gets better and better and so forth. But compared to now, neural networks, different game, like whole different. Neural networks essentially at some level are a black box.
Yeah.
Because they have input and it basically is mimicking the brain, which is super interesting. I think all of us have studied like this you obviously,
synapses and everything.
Yeah, it's literally mimicking synapses, but they don't actually fully know why the input relates to the output. They just know that this forms, X pattern and so forth output. So what's your take on the whole thing? Yeah.
Have you heard the, I think it's called the Chinese room analogy?
No.
So basically, like, there's a person who lives in a room, right? And all they have in that room is they have a dictionary, right?
Yeah.
And then someone comes and hands them like a piece of like kind of something written in English.
Okay.
They take it and they translate it, right, into Chinese, and then they hand it out the other side, like to another post box, right? Like they give it back to that person.
Okay.
Does that person in a new room know Chinese?
Okay, so wait, so somebody comes in. I got a bit lost
Wait,
there.
I have a question. Why Chinese?
No, but wait, no, 'cause
in
it's
light of like, yeah.
genuinely interesting. So somebody comes in, gives you a slip, and that has
Yeah.
Chinese on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he translates it, or what? What's he
He
doing?
translates, so he takes like, he's got a book, right? And he's using this like set of instructions. Where he's got like a kind of like a set of instructions, like not necessarily a dictionary, a set of instructions that tells him how to perfectly translate everything you just wrote into Chinese.
Oh, I
into
see.
Mandarin.
Okay, got
Right?
you.
You don't necessarily know exactly what he's doing. Like if I was to ask you, like, bro, translate this right into like I don't know, into Punjabi or something, right?
Yeah.
Like you'd be able to do it because you have an inherent understanding of the semantic contents. You
Yeah.
you have an understanding. You've heard.
The worst bit is I actually don't.
He doesn't. He doesn't. No,
but it's
don't.
Call me out.
Jay.
Yeah,
But it's,
I would do it,
Yeah,
not
Jake
him.
could do it.
Yeah,
but that's
not
so interesting because then you're kind of now questioning what is understanding of a topic, right? Like, because if they have a mapping of Chinese to, let's say, English, or Mandarin to English, do you have an understanding at that point because you have access? But then without that,
From a neuroscience perspective, though, is learning something or understanding something, is that purely a function of like learning an association? It's not. Like if you have a particular word, for example, right? That word you probably learn. For example, but if you learned the word, I don't know, like perspicacity, everyone would have thought of Andrew Tate, right?
Really,
Like,
yeah?
my infallible and perspicacity, whatever, right? So everyone has that word and that association with the word. There's a reason they might have remembered that word particularly from him because they have a particular association or fondness of him, so they have more reason to learn it. They probably hear it in his voice.
Yeah.
So they have associations with that word. They have images associated with that word, noises, right? They have a time and place that they heard it. It's not necessarily just a mapping between the word perspicacity and the definition of perspicacity. Perspicacity. So it's the same thing. Does a machine really know what the context of this word is? Does it have a way of associating it, right, with this host of other information that we use to map and model the world around us? Of course not. Right? It has a very simple way of kind of like of associating it with something which is the definition of it. It's seen it in the context of like its relationship with other words, like because ChatGPT was like trained on like Wikipedia and a bunch of other texts.
yeah.
That's how it's been trained, and so that's how it knows the context. But it's never seen someone use that word, right? It doesn't know what it feels like to use that word. It's never heard. It doesn't know who Andrew Tate is. It doesn't know the association of Andrew Tate with the rest of the world. It doesn't understand the semantic, kind of like the
Emotions and all
Yeah.
that sort.
exactly.
I think what you mentioned there, a lot of people might not know is how to train these things. So it's all trained off of data. And essentially, like, think of a self-driving car. In the beginning, they're not great because there wasn't so much data we're capturing. And actually usable data that we can actually model into sort of some form of output, which is like drive the car, right? And now over time, obviously self-driving is getting to a point where it's really damn good. Like you can drive through the city itself. So the idea of training data, just give a kind of breakdown of what that is and how a neural network can go from basically understanding nothing to using data to having some kind of output.
Any machine learning system consists of three things. You have your data, you have your model, and you have your training procedure, right?
Yep.
So in terms of the data, the more data you have, the more information you have to be able to understand something. It's the same thing as like, if you're able to practice the piano using as many different variations of a particular song or as many different pieces of a song, not just the same song over and over again, right?
Yeah.
You're able to get a much more broader understanding of piano.
Yeah.
You're able to get a much more broader understanding of songs. So that's the reason why we try to give the machine learning algorithm not just like the same kind of information, but as many different kinds of the information or different pieces of information as possible to get a holistic kind of like understanding of what it means to learn piano. And then you need to have your model. Now, the model part is interesting, right? Like you mentioned before, you have like a variety of different models, but neural networks are the ones that we seem to kind of like really stick with now.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because like we're able to train them much more quickly.
Yeah.
We have like GPUs now, right? So you can do like kind of like massive multi-core training of these massive. It takes a lot of money. A lot of money to train a neural network.
Yeah.
It's very expensive to train it from scratch.
Yeah.
Like you can fine-tune pre-trained neural networks to do new tasks, but to train a neural network from scratch is a very laborious process. And GPUs are the only reason that we're able to kind of like do it a lot more quickly now.
Right.
And then finally, you have your training procedure as well. So when you think about training a neural network, so like if you give someone a training task to do, if you ask them to train at a particular time of the day, like if you ask them to train something, like to read something in the morning, they're much more likely to kind of like get a better understanding of what they're reading than if they were like reading it like at 4 a.m. for example, right? After a long day or like going out. It's the same thing with machine learning. Like how do you initialize the training procedure? Like where do you start the weights, for example, in a neural network?
Yeah.
So the way that you set up the training procedures, the same way as you set up someone to go and learn something brand new as well. The better you're able to set someone up, the better you train that neural network, the better you train that person.
Right.
So that's the 3 stages involved.
Okay. Now I remember this is literally me trying to pull threads of what we knew back at uni. But with that training procedure, a lot of the time there is a teacher signal, right? Or something where something could go in the right way where it's a correct outcome and something going the wrong outcome. So is that a human process where we're basically saying this output was correct, keep doing that. This output was wrong, don't do that again. And then that essentially is forming some better model.
It's a form of reinforcement learning, right?
Yeah.
So basically, like, you're being told that you're doing something wrong. And so therefore, like, you're telling it, okay, look, just try and change what you're doing in the direction of doing something right. So you end up changing the algorithm, or you end up changing the procedure that you're using to try and get it right a little bit more.
Yeah.
So you end up giving it a score. So it's called like the negative log loss in some cases, like when we're using kind of classification. In cases of like regression learning, like it's a different kind of learning, you also have the RMSE. Like there's a bunch of different ways that you can use it, like root mean square error. But like it's mostly like it's reinforcement learning.
Right.
It's the same way as a human might learn.
Yeah, I think that's when I found it like absolutely mind blowing. Because
It's like a baby.
Professor literally said a baby.
A baby walking.
Yeah,
is
yeah,
literally reinforcement learning.
Exactly.
Yeah, like you see it every day now because Jay's got a little one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
dude, yeah.
He
literally.
was crawling, now he's already walking.
There's a
By
massive
himself. Yeah.
There's a massive debate, by the way, between like people called frequentists and people called Bayesian machine learning.
Okay.
Again, like this is what, if you get into the mathematical side of machine learning, like you get deep into the trenches.
Yeah.
Like you learn about this kind of like difference. So
Right.
Bayesian machine learning people, right? Like they learn about stuff like priors. Like you never necessarily talk about like, a p-value, for example, or you don't talk about like making a completely positive prediction. Like what's you ask, like you need to predict whether or not this thing is like red or blue.
Yeah.
A Bayesianist will give you the distribution over like the probabilities, right? That these things are either red or blue.
Right.
And that's more intuitive. I think I like the Bayesian side a lot more. Like we have a prior distribution over the probability that we might electrocute ourselves if we put our finger in a socket, right?
Right.
It's like 50-50 when you're a baby.
Yeah.
And then you end up doing it, right? So you basically get some data and evidence, right? And you update your probability. So you're like, oh crap, I got electrocuted. I'm never gonna do that again, right? So the probability of that particular event happening, right, is not 100%. Then you update your probability distribution over it again. But sometimes if I told you that thing there now, like, is no longer live, and to be able to kind of like open the secret door to get out of here, you have to put your finger in it again, right?
Right.
You have to update that again. Like your prior belief is 100%. It might be 99% now.
Oh, I see.
Or it was 99.9%. Nothing's 100% certain in Bayesian probability.
Yeah.
I give you a piece of information, you update it 75% if you trust me.
Yeah.
If you trust me a lot, it might be 45% or 35%.
It's so close to, I think, the Monty Hall problem. Do you know about that?
Yeah. The one with like, the doors.
I think you're
doors,
talking about the door. I thought it's close
So what
to
is
that.
the Monty Hall problem?
So, do you want to
You go on.
No, but I think
you'd explain better.
Okay.
No, it's just fuzzy, but it's like you have 3 doors, and like they usually take a goat on the as an example, right? And there's money on one of the doors. So the host would ask you like, okay, pick one door where you think the money would be. Now you pick some door, and obviously only one door has the money behind, and the other 2 have the goats, and you want the money, right? So you pick one, and now your probability of picking the right one is obviously 33% because the other 2 are goats, right? So you have more chance of picking the wrong one first. So you'll open when you pick one door, the host will open the door and it'll be a goat most likely, and he'll tell you, okay, do you? The host won't open the door. Sorry, my bad. You pick the door, and the host will be like, okay, do you? This one has a goat. Do you want to shift the door, or do you want to keep your choice?
Right.
And based on mathematics and statistics, you should always switch, because you picking the wrong one will always be a greater probability. So now you have a 50-50 chance of picking the right one, if that makes sense.
You don't switch. So the Monty Hall problem, right? So like, if the door that opens, so like if the door opens has a goat behind it, then you don't want to switch.
Yeah, I think I've heard of this. Yeah,
because now the conditional probability is 2/3.
Yeah.
But if you switch, then you've changed your probabilities.
So you have 3 doors, right? So one of them has a
No,
Ferrari.
you switch, Leon.
Really?
You have to switch.
Someone
because...
Someone drop in the comments.
Drop in the comments. But Leon, the first time you have always a chance of picking, you have more probability of picking the wrong one the first time.
Yeah.
Right? So
what's the probability of like the goat?
So
It's
now,
2/3,
no,
right?
because at the start, when you're picking a door, right, you have 3 choices and you go more wrong. And the second time when you have a choice, you have 50-50. So you have more chances of picking the right one, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you're saying to switch the door.
No. So, okay, 3 doors. Door number 1 has a money, and door number 2 and 3 are the wrong ones.
Yeah.
You pick door number 2 or 3 most likely the first time.
Yeah.
Because that's the probability, right?
Right.
And now the host will be like, do you want to keep the door or do you want to switch?
Okay.
So you have to switch because
But
now you
you-
have a 50-50 chance
Okay.
rather than a 33.
When you
know what I
say
mean?
switch, you mean literally
Like from door 3, you switch to the either one door.
Okay.
To pick another door, basically, is what
Yeah.
I mean by switch.
Okay.
So you got to, oh my God, he's just checking, the internet.
But the point of this was
You do want to switch. Yes, you're completely correct. Yes, bro.
Yes,
He's completely
thank
correct.
you.
Yes.
Okay, so it's not fuzzy.
Yes.
Because you switch because you have more probability of picking the right door the second time.
Yeah. I thought you meant you should, because naturally you would want to obviously switch, no? Because if you've already gone through one door and there's not a goat, there's a goat behind it. Now you want to pick either up 1 or 3.
No, but people don't switch because they think, no, my first choice is the right one, but they don't know that they have a less probability of picking the right one. There's only a 33% chance of where you lose the door.
It's the conditional probability. The question is like, what's the conditional probability, right? Like the other door contains the Ferrari, given that the door that I have right now has the goat. And so when you actually like kind of like look at the set of probabilities, right? Because like you've eliminated one of the options, the conditional probability becomes 2/3 that the door has the Ferrari, right? Like if you switch. So that's how the problem kind of like emerges. I was thinking about where you have 2 goats, like 2 Ferraris and 1 goat or something.
No, you only have 1 door with one.
You want the goat.
Nice. There's lots of problems, like even traveling salesman problems. Heard that one. This.
No.
Oh, it's amazing. So if you've got 50, I'm surprised you don't know this.
I think I've heard of the word traveling salesman.
Yeah.
I learned that in grade 10.
It's kind of like an algorithmic problem where it's like you've got a salesman, and what is the shortest distance? So it takes the United States, for example, like however many, how many states? 52? I don't know. Is it 50? Is it 50?
Let's just talk about the UAE, right?
How many
7
is it?
states
52,
in UAE.
52, right? I think it's 52, yeah. Because it's not 50. I'm sure there's like an extra 2 or something.
Like,
Okay, anyway, we're not Americans. So anyway, so you need to basically find the shortest distance to travel to every single city, and you can't revisit a city.
Yeah.
And how do you do that?
And the shortest distance.
Yeah, the shortest distance, between cities as well.
Yeah.
So it's a crazy, like, complex problem.
Wow.
And then they tried to do they did genetic algorithms against this kind of stuff. And I think the best that they've come to now is neural networks. But it's a good test of like effectiveness.
Efficiency as well.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's so interesting though. Yeah, because a lot of people were coming up with all kinds of theorems, and it's a good way of, just like you said, it takes luck sometimes to bump into something. This was just a really good way to test your whatever you've come up with, like against the problem. But yeah, it's super interesting. I remember it came up in uni, and we were like, where the hell do we even begin? Like you start writing a for loop, and you're like,
you have some like n to the power of n squared to the power of n algorithm.
So jokes. So Leon, let's come to something like a bit of a we tried to do like a bit of a fun round as well.
Yeah.
All right. So you're now in Dubai.
Yeah.
What would you pick either? So you've lived in the US, you lived in Dubai, you lived in London. Where would you live long term, and why?
Dubai, forever.
Okay, why?
Dude, it's just so safe here, man. Number one, it's so safe. Like I find like in London, you constantly have like this anxiety where you feel like you're like.
Thanks.
Imagine you're constantly like having anxiety that you're gonna get like robbed through a packet of Monster Munch on the train or something, right? Like it's just the risk to reward ratio of like living there is just ridiculously like kind of high. Like whatever you make, you end up kind of like, spending it on trying your best to just survive out there.
Yeah.
And it's so, especially if you have like a family that you're trying to support, like if you really want to kind of like help your mom or your brothers or your sisters, for example, like being able to fulfill that kind of role, especially as Asians, like it's like an obligatory, right?
Yeah.
It's not like I can go there if I have something wrong. I have to help my mom. That's it. Like it's just, it's part of being like, the eldest male in an Asian household.
Yeah.
You have
I
to
agree.
do it, right?
Yeah.
So like that luxury of being able to say like, no, mom, like, it doesn't exist. Like I have to help her. So
yeah.
I give the money, and then after all of that, like, what do you have left over to be able to buy a house? Like, it's very little. And then your lifestyle there sucks because you can't go out at certain times of night. You go to certain places, you might get robbed. Whatever you've worked for, if you're wearing like a nice watch, you can get robbed for it.
Yeah.
Like, how is that a nice return on like kind of like the amount of crazy amounts of work you're putting in? It's just not. So I love Dubai and kind of like the peace of mind it affords you. But also I love the fact that, like, especially like in terms of like the family that I have here, like I didn't get a chance to see them a lot, and so I get to spend a lot of time with them.
Nice.
I love the fact that like you meet really cool people here as well.
Nice.
So like I've managed to make a big circle of friends here because everyone's out here, like they're grinding, they're trying to like
high energy. It's really crazy. Yeah.
Like everyone's like kind of like grinding in their own way. There are people that you just don't want to meet, like
there are.
just like anywhere in the world, like there's people you just don't want to associate with. Like there's people that are really, really good, and like you can kind of like really eventually you kind of like learn this probabilistic model, like machine learning model in your head, how to like classify the bad ones from the good ones.
Yeah.
Build up a good network. That's kind of like what I love about Dubai.
But having grown up with like having a bit of trauma, a bit of things that have happened to you, which shaped you as a character. Like I remember reading, I listened to a podcast and it was so interesting. I can't remember which one it was, but it was basically like Dubai is too good in the sense where they say you raise somebody from the beginning, like as a child. it's they've done such a good job of making it safe that as a man, you're not exposed to the things which are going to shape you to become the person who works really hard, faces adversity and gets over it. Yeah. So what would you say about raising like a family in a place like Dubai? Would you choose Dubai then, or would you pick somewhere else?
You have to be able to kind of like expose them to the elements of life that are, I mean, Dubai is it's a paradise, right? Like it's a utopia, and like the rest of the world isn't. And so like, it's very difficult for us to kind of go back to London, for example, right? And kind of like go back to your profile, keeping up this like hard exterior, right? When you're used to being here and being like kind of like basically surrounded by an air of safetiness. And so like what you have to do is just constantly challenge yourself here and constantly expose yourself to discomfort. Yeah. Discomfort is what shapes you. Right, it's not literally, you can't just like read a book and then think, okay, I've changed now. Like, it's not like that, right? We can't just decide like I'm a different person and just kind of like it just changes. You have to experience discomfort to grow, and the more this uncomfortable things you put yourself through, the more likely you are to kind of like change the underlying traits of your personality that make you into the person you want to be. Yeah. And so, for example, if you want to be somebody that's like less challenged by being or fearful of getting like robbed or something, right? Go and expose yourself to people that are likely to do that to you, like people that you think are scary, right? Like I saw Khabib for the first time in my life, right? I saw him face to face. And after seeing this guy face to face, right? Like a lot of people don't scare me. Like, I literally put the fear of humanity into me. I saw the most scary person in the world, like right before and he was angry at me, so it's a very different story. Yeah. Like he was angry because like we like kind of went up to his like floor of his hotel to kind of like get an autograph. Like it was like, what the hell are you guys
Probably
doing?
Not the smartest thing to do with Khabib.
Really wasn't, bro. Like his cousins were there. Like they all like, what the hell are you doing here? But like, it was my fault. Like I apologized like a billion times. Yeah. But like, so like I started to do a lot of wrestling, a lot of jiu-jitsu. I put myself into like opportunities where I just get hit in the face, where I get smashed up, right? The more times you get hit, the less likely you're to be fearful of getting hit. You experience that discomfort. Yeah. And so therefore you become more comfortable with that particular element of being uncomfortable. And so therefore, if you're likely to go somewhere where something like that is more prevalent, you are less likely to be completely taken off guard when something like that happens to you. Yeah. And so therefore, if you train yourself for those elements of life that are likely kind of like to disrupt your tranquility, you're able to better safeguard your tranquility against it. So in London, like again, like I know that I can defend myself. I'm never gonna go and like if someone tries to rob my phone and they have a knife, take my phone, bro.
But it is at least good you're aware about it.
Exactly.
You know what I mean, some people are not even aware about it. Like they're like, oh, that happens. So
but I think the golden point from all of that is getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, because we teach this a lot and we say the same thing, and that's so true. Because even if you're in a great position, like in Dubai, like you're safe and you've got everything around, you have to be the one. A lot of people are like, yeah, but I haven't got this in my life. I haven't got that. You got to put yourself in those situations where you're uncomfortable. Like even when we first did the podcast, when we do all these different opportunities that you do, like you moving to Dubai, trying something new, taking a shift and moving into cancer research, all these things are making you uncomfortable because there's no straight path to where you want to get to. It's like, this is like, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to figure it out.
Exactly. Yeah. And it safeguards you against complacency. Yeah. And so like but the problem is that a lot of people, they refuse to sort of update themselves. A lot of people kind of scared of ChatGPT and these other technologies, right? Because they're so glued to their old ways. And like, you have to be uncomfortable. Like even regardless of how old you are, right? You have to accept the fact that this thing is here. You have to learn the nuances of it. You have to adapt yourself and grow. Yeah. And that's what makes humans survive, by the way, right? It's not like the fact that we were the strongest or the smartest. It's the fact that we were the most adaptable to change.
Exactly.
There's no species that lives in every single continent, right? From Siberia all the way to like the sub-Saharan like desert and thrives, and like kind of like it's only us because we're adaptable to change. And so therefore the species that's most likely to survive, or the person that's most likely to succeed, is the one that's most adaptable to change. 100%. And so but to change is to be uncomfortable, and people don't want to do that. So
exactly. I think golden point, man.
Golden point to end it.
Nice. Dude, I think we would definitely need to have you back on to talk more, because it
wasn't enough.
We could talk for hours about all of this kind of stuff, especially the door problem.
We'll just bring some math problems next time.
But if you guys enjoyed, make sure you like and follow The Reactive Entrepreneur for more, and let us know in the comments if you want to see Leon back on the show. It's going to be awesome. We're definitely bringing him back on. And as always, guys, we will see you in the next episode.
Much love, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks. Peace.